Alright team, welcome back to another video. I've been meaning to record this one. It was sort of more of a pertinent topic for Holy Week and Passion Week. So yeah, it's basically about the blood of the martyrs and also Christ's passion and death on the cross, and how, well, those two topics are related, but also in terms of how our suffering is redeemed through Christ and we can offer that through the cross. So obviously you've got the passion and death of Jesus Christ and his resurrection, which he basically suffered the worst possible death and the worst possible suffering, both physically and spiritually, because you can see in the agony of the garden when he basically considered his upcoming passion and he considered the sins of mankind basically that would be committed throughout all of time. It anguished his soul so much that his body sweat blood, which is a scientifically possible thing, but it's irreplicable, because the suffering, the level of anguish and emotional pain that you have to get to that point is so severe. So basically through that point, and obviously all the way through his passion, he had the emotional and mental suffering of the sins of mankind. And in terms of the person of Jesus, obviously the betrayal of his friends and things like that. And the physical suffering of the passion, which is the scourging, the crowning with thorns, falling with the cross 3 times, and obviously the crucifixion itself. So he entered so deeply into our human wounds, well, to the deepest possible depth, that was basically how he was able to, when he was resurrected, he had experienced the worst of humanity. So he redeemed us from our very lowest point. We can do another video about sort of how the redemption actually worked, but with all of that in mind, Christ then says, pick up your cross and follow after me. He who lays down his life for his friend will gain it. He who loses his life will gain it. All of these different sayings, he's basically saying, you need to carry the cross, you need to carry your cross, you need to imitate me in my passion and in my death in order to have eternal life. So he's basically saying, well, one, we need to physically emulate him, we need to physically do hard things, and we need to serve others, we need to die to ourselves and die to our own will. But then he also says, and a bit more implicitly, that because he's done this, our sufferings and those crosses and hardships that we endure, they're redeemed by Christ and we can offer them through him. So no longer is it just pointless suffering and death with no hope, but through Christ and through his redemption, our suffering helps us get to heaven and helps us get others to heaven. So it's not pointless suffering. We can offer it and unite it with the cross. And that's where St. Paul says, I make up in myself what is lacking in the sufferings of Christ. Of course, he didn't mean that there was anything missing in the passion and death of Christ, but that we as individual members of the church can actually contribute to that and be a part of it. It's not just this one act that's abstract and external to ourselves, but it's something that's deeply meaningful and actually applicable in our own lives. So those are the main points. And then I guess how this topic came to mind a little bit was the new Enoch song, which is Blood of a Martyr, and where he says the blood of a martyr is the seed of the church. And obviously martyrdom, well, it's effectively the highest sacrifice, which is giving your life for Christ or for the church, where to the point of death, where not, you basically say, if you don't renounce the faith, we'll kill you. Well, obviously there were heaps of saints who that happened to, and that's kind of the ultimate thing, where you're actually putting your life, the very thing that is most important, I guess, from a worldly point of view. Like, you can lose everything, but if you're still alive, at least you're still here. But they're also taking your own life. So that's kind of the ultimate level of that. The blood spilt by the martyrs, that suffering given by martyrs and other Christians, is the seed of the church. is the seed of conversions. It's what brings souls into the church and what keeps the church alive and flourishing, because it's works and faith. So without those works and ultimate acts of self-sacrifice, the church wouldn't really be here. Like the testimony of the martyrs and of the apostles and of Christians in the day-to-day, when they give their lives through service, that's really what converts people. And that's really those acts of charity and intercessory prayer that keep the church alive and keep it all going. So the blood of the martyrs is the seed of the church. It waters the church. The blood of Christ and the blood of the martyrs is the water which grows the tree, which is the church. So a bit of spirituality there for you guys. Hopefully that makes sense. Feel free to ask me any questions around it, or maybe if you wanted any further reading on it. I'm sure the church fathers have written on this, but yeah, that was really the sort of the 3 points that I wanted to address. So the passion and death of Christ, our suffering through it, and the blood of the martyrs. And there's actually a third one here, which is the Mass. So how the holy sacrifice of the Mass is that initial passion of Christ represented across time, every single Mass, every single day on the altar, on every Catholic church. So there's an added dimension to where it's not just our suffering, but it's also Christ's suffering and passion and his body with us through the Eucharist every day. There's a little bit extra there, which we can definitely go into. But yeah, just keep that line in mind. The blood of the martyrs is the seed of the church, and our blood, the blood of our suffering, is also the seed of the church and can be the seeds of grace in our and other people's lives. All right, God bless, guys. We'll hit you with another one soon. Cheers.